Once that started happening, and once we've hit that debt level that's unserviceable, there has to be something that switches and changes over for us to correct that. And there's a few different ways that governments can go about that, but one of the most likely is that there would be some sort of re-rating of the dollar, and with that would have to come a hard currency attached to it, or of some sorts.
Welcome back to Metals and Miners. I'm your host, Gary Bohm. Today, we're digging into the resilient and exciting world of gold with Stefan Sklepowicz, CEO of Kirkland Lake Discoveries. Kirkland Lake, their projects are near some major existing mines, including the Macassa mine and the proposed Upper Beaver project mine, both owned by none other than Agnico Eagle mines. And Kirkland has all the ingredients for a major discovery going for them. Stefan, it's an honor to have you on Metals and Miners. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Gary. This is going to be fun.
Yeah. All right. So, Stefan, the last major capital expenditure, the CapEx cycle in gold, was around 2008 to 2011. It saw significant investment into new projects, but then that was followed by a massive price crash in 2012. That led to the long consolidation period that lasted all the way until last March of 2024, when gold finally broke out above 2,000. Since, it has doubled to over 4,000, reaching a high of almost 4,400. But then last month, it experienced a really scary and historic 6 Sigma drawdown in one single day. That led many psychologically scarred investors to believe, oh no, it's 2011, 2012, all over again. The top is in. You're smiling, so I know you know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
But gold has really shown some incredible resilience since then. So now you have Kirkland Lake. They're searching for large gold discoveries near the Ontario region of Canada in a time when the big boys like Agnico Eagle will need to replenish their reserves in the coming years. What do you hope for those tuning into this conversation today that everybody will walk away with after listening to our discussion?
That's a good question. What I really want people to see is how we have taken one of the most risky investments. Realistically, junior miners are one of those things where they are big risk but big payoff, and that's why we invest in, myself included. It's that opportunity for a 10, 20, 30, 40x in a very short period of time. How we as a company have de-risked ours as much as you possibly can, taken this beautiful big land package and brought it into smaller pieces that are showing great signs of mineralization and opportunity. So basically, I think it's taking what we've done and being able to communicate that this is a really good bet and good opportunity to get that 40x in a short period of time.
Wonderful. All right. Well, let's begin with the current price of gold. Currently, gold sits slightly above 4,100. It's down a little less than 10% from its high, despite the massive drawdown we just talked about last month and the huge volatility since. Many have been calling for a massive crash, but it's been so resilient ever since. What are you seeing in your analysis in gold, and what does the current resiliency in gold really tell you?
You got to think that when you have a 100% increase in something that is usually as stable as gold, there's going to be people who are taking profits. There's going to be people who are, feeling that there's fervor and there's been froth in the market. And so for me, it wasn't necessarily a surprising thing. We saw a jump from 3,800 to 4,400 in an extremely short period of time. To me, that was more scary because I was like, okay, this is it. That was the final domino that was knocking us over that edge. And so I looked at that and was like, this is a little terrifying. And so for me, it was welcome when we had that pullback. It was, you have to have consolidation to have further increase. And when we weren't getting any consolidation, that's where you start to get a little bit worried that it's not real, that there's too much hype, or there's too much not thought out buying necessarily. And so with that pullback, for me, it was like, yeah, great, this is a really good opportunity for us to consolidate again, to get that next step up. And that's exactly what we're showing, right? We're staying around that 4,000 mark. I still remember when we crossed that 4,000 threshold, it was, celebration and excitement in the space. And then we hit 4,400 and people are just kind of like, oh, this is it, we're going crazy here. And then we pull back to 4,100, and those same people that were celebrating were jumping ship and, scared to death that this was the end. But like you said, we've been scarred with the last 20 years of metals and mining, realistically, not quite 20, but damn close. And there's that short, mindset where you go, okay, well, I've already been beat so many times. How many more times do I need to take this? I think this is different. I think this is a much longer secular change. There's a lot of things that have led to this, and those haven't disappeared. Those, the debt load across the world, realistically, the length of time that the U.S. dollar has been this paramount currency, it's over periods of time. These things come and go, and so we're at that age where it's a little ripe, and so the world will have to naturally change over. And with that, it can't just be another fiat currency. There has to be something that's backing it, and that's where I think this change is coming. And it might be early stages. I'm hoping it's gentle, but that's what I expect is going on right now.
So I was going to ask you about the fundamental differences today versus the last three. The last three, Stefan, the bull markets, 2011, 2016, 2020, they all saw large moves higher, and they were followed by these sharp sustained drops. So where do you see the differences, fundamentally speaking, today that makes this one so much different than the previous three?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's what ended up happening in 2020 is what's really shifted, right? So with COVID and with the huge amounts of money being put into the system, that for me was the point of no return. Once that started happening, and once we've hit that debt level that's unserviceable, there has to be something that switches and changes over for us to correct that. And there's a few different ways that governments can go about that, but one of the most likely is that there will be some sort of re-rating of the dollar, and with that would have to come a hard currency attached to it, or of some sorts. It could be the ones and zeros of Bitcoin, or it could be the precious metals that have been around for 5,000 years. I don't know, but if I was placing my bet, which I have, I would guess on those metals.
Okay. All right. So physical gold as an asset and an investment really has no business to measure, no profits to share. It just sits there. So if somebody owns gold, it's just sitting there. As such, it's really an emotional asset. It gets bought with emotion, especially as risks are rising. So currency risks, debt risks, geopolitical risks, stock market risks, all the other risks that you could possibly think of, they're driving investors into gold, often emotionally. We just saw that recently on the run up to 4,400. The emotion can actually turn to becoming very irrational. With that said, as more investors come in to secure gold to preserve their wealth and their purchasing power, and to escape so many risks that are rising all around us, do you expect the price of gold to become emotional again and behave irrationally again? Or do you expect it to behave more methodically from here on out?
I think we're going to have so we had an emotional pullback. I think a lot of that was fear selling. And like you talked about that, you get hit with a broom enough times, you're going to duck, right? And so there's been too many times where we've had those sharp pullbacks. So I think that was the emotional response. And from that, you're going to have a more level-headed, structured response going forward, at least for a period of time. And then that emotional response is going to kick in again. It's almost the same thing that we saw when we were skating around that 2000 mark. We were kind of bouncing up and down and staying at that level. It was emotional and then steady, and then emotional and then steady. And so I think we kind of go through those stages naturally, which a lot of times people are looking for that quick return as much as they can get in a short period of time, and that's where that emotion and greed come in a lot of the time. And so I feel that happened. People got this excitement, and then all of a sudden you get a little pullback, and it goes, okay, quick, pull the chute, let's get out of here. And now it's not dropping like a lot of people are expecting, and we're going to see that probably continue for maybe the next month, and then into the new year. I'm expecting a lot of those people that took their gains of this year are going to get right back into it. It's I don't know if it's going to necessarily be emotional right away, but I think there's going to be a little bit more of a steadiness and consistent growth here for the next foreseeable future, realistically.
Yeah, and if it does, pass that 4,400 mark on the next leg up and hits 4,500, that might not just get those people back in, but it might draw some new people, or maybe it's going to be as it approaches 5,000. More and more people over time are going to recognize the need for gold and the security of gold. You and I were talking about this before we started recording, and that, I asked you how many people in your circle have come to you to talk to you about gold. Here you are, the CEO of a gold mining company, and gold is doubling in 18 months or less, and miners are going up hundreds of percent all around us. And you told me one person in your inner circle. So that's not the behavior of a top. That's not the behavior of the previous market cycles. That would indicate that we're a long ways away.
Exactly. You're not getting your Uber drivers asking you, what's the best pick, those types of things. Like we go to conferences regularly, and people, you talk in the cabs or the Ubers. And I still remember, in those times of froth where you're having those conversations of, hey, what's the next best pick? I haven't had any of those conversations. So like, it's almost that it's still flying under the radar. I think there's a lot of people who are suffering financially at this point in time, and it's the last thing on their mind is, how can I make more money on the stock market with a safe bet with gold? And that's the scary thing to me too, that this is going on and there still isn't a lot of attention. So what's to come? What's this future look like? And that's it's always good to be safe with holding metals. The only problem is that when we're making money, a lot of times the world's suffering. So for me, that's the challenge that goes along with this.
So one of the other topics of conversation, Stefan, that we had before we started recording was about AI and the tech stocks, and how you had said to me that you consider them overvalued. I want to share something with you here. Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Anthropic, that's an AI startup a few years old. They just completed a multi-billion-dollar deal that valued Anthropic at $350 billion. I don't know if you saw this.
I didn't see that one.
Okay. So Anthropic is just a couple of years old. They're now valued, based on this deal with Microsoft and NVIDIA, at $350 billion. Okay. That's not XAI with, Elon Musk. That's not ChatGPT. That's not Perplexity. There's so many of them. That's Anthropic. Okay. Anthropic's founder, Dario Amodei, he's been out on interviews over the last 6 months saying that most startup level white collar jobs will be gone to AI within 5 years. He's saying jobs in law, technology, medicine, just to name a few, white collar jobs. There is so much capital being thrown at AI from every direction. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. AI is either going to eat the world and be the greatest destroyer of jobs that man has ever seen, or it's going to be the greatest destroyer of capital that man has ever seen. It seems very binary at this point. We just don't know when we're going to get to that split. Either way, the risks are historically high and still rising, and we all need to hedge these negative tail outcomes. Your thoughts on this, and why gold is the perfect hedge for these risks that AI is creating?
So AI it's a tricky beast. I use AI. We use AI with our company. It's something that we've been doing for years. But I still believe that we have to have those people that are part of guiding that model, because I don't know how many times that I've used ChatGPT to be like, just a perfect example. I was making a a batting list for my kids' baseball team. And so I put in the names of the individuals on the team, and I said, just randomize this. And next time, make sure it's shifted so that the middle is at the top is at the bottom, and the bottom's at the middle, and set it up so that it was, had a record of it and everything. And then the next time I go to use it, it just generated random names, didn't even, cue that it didn't know the names or anything like that. So as much as we are putting a lot of money into this, I still know it's a long way away from, taking over the world per se. It is learning fast, and the things that you're seeing as compared to 5-10 years ago is insane. Video creation, those types of things, which we didn't even thought was possible. Right. So I understand why people are getting excited about it and why there is investment in it. But it's like, how much are those companies making? How much are those AI companies making compared to what they're costing? And when you start looking at that, where you go, okay, so how much? What do these profits look like? And then you compare it to something like Agnico, and you go, okay, so what do these profits look like? And the cost to earnings ratio, there's a no-brainer there, right? And so when I'm looking at that, the metals and mining space definitely has a better return for dollars spent. There's no doubt about that. And all of these things that involve AI, let's say it is successful and it is going to be the thing of the future. How are you powering all those things? How are you, let's say you're going into robotics and things like that. All of those things come from metals. And so let's say it's going to be the most successful thing. Guess what? You still need metals. You still need to do mining, right? And if it's a absolute waste of money and a destruction of currency, then guess what? There's your precious metals coming in to save the day at the end. So no matter what ends up happening, for me, the long-term outlook for precious metals specifically is very good.
Let me ask you this question as a follow-up. If you had to place your bet probability-wise on an outcome, do you believe that the outcome of AI, whether it's 5 years or 10 years or whatever, is going to be the greatest destroyer of jobs? Or do you think it's going to be the greatest destroyer of capital?
So if we look at this as so who's paying for those things in the end, right? So let's say it is the destroyer of jobs, then there's no one left to pay for those things because you're eliminating all this stuff from the economy, right? And so there's no longer all of those things that are going to be paid for. And so you have in the end, I think they both lead to a destruction of capital in the end. I can't see how you can make all these jobs disappear and then have a positive outcome, right? It's not like a lawyer is going to pick up a shift at the local factory to make ends meet, because the AI took out their job. And so all of a sudden there's this gap in the economy where it just reduces. So unless there's some sort of profit sharing for these random individuals, like the government giving you a general salary, then that's the only way that I could see that it changes in a positive light from that regard. So,
we're talking UBI. You're talking UBI there, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, for me, I think I would have to lean towards the greatest destruction of capital.
Well, maybe that's a hope, right? Okay. Yeah. All right. So since the last gold CapEx cycle was so long ago, and really no new large gold discoveries have been found and are producing since then, would you explain to everyone the importance of companies like Kirkland Lake to the supply side of the equation moving forward?
Yeah, and it's often overlooked, these little guys that are doing the exploration work. But when you look at the majors of the space, the Eldorados, the Agnicos, the IAMGolds, they are really focused on efficiency. They're focused on providing dividends for their investors. They're focused on good production. And if you're focused on all those things, you're not a risk taker. And with exploration, you need to take risks. You have to be fully dedicated to a singular area where, with deep focus, to unpick all the different layers, put the puzzle pieces together to figure out these mysteries of exploration. And so that's where our companies, the junior miners, fit into this. And what we do is we focus on finding metals and deposits in some of the more, not necessarily risky environments, but they haven't been proven out. And so to basically fill that gap of the mineral reserve pipeline, you need a junior exploration company. And so, like you said, it's kind of been about 10 years that there hasn't been any major. There have been a couple, but nothing major where we're replenishing, reserves. And so what ends up happening is you're having more capital build up in these majors, and their efficiencies are rising, and there's this depletion of the next layer to go into that. You're seeing a lot of mid tiers being gobbled up at this point in time. Probe was just sold a couple of weeks ago. There was a Superior Metals up in Chibougamau, just as another example. So there's been multiple kind of those ones that are on the precipice are getting gobbled up. And what ends up happening is that will then trickle down further into those juniors that are more risky stage, but at the same time sometimes have these incredible ideas and focuses that are specifically to that. So we're the risk takers of the industry. We're the, if you were to switch it over to tech, it's the R&D. That's the way I look at it. Is R&D important in tech? For sure. It's the next discovery. It's the next form of income, and that's exactly what we are. High risk, but the reward can be exponential.
Fantastic. All right. So, Stefan, let's move over and talk about Kirkland Lake Discoveries in depth. The management team is the first thing that potential investors always look at when considering an investment in an exploration company. Tell us about the management team at Kirkland and how you got to the point where you guys are at now, and why it should give investors confidence.
So the chairman of our company is Denis Laviolette. Denis has been in the industry for 25 years. He's an exploration geologist at heart. He started Goldspot Discoveries, which is actually an AI company for mineral exploration, which is funny to put all these pieces together. It's sold to ALS Geochemics. And he also started another company called Newfound Gold. So Newfound Gold went from, a startup market cap, let's say 25, 50 million type of thing, to $2 billion in 2 short years. And so he looks at things a lot differently than the average geologist. He's thinking big picture, district scale. And so he was the one that brought this company kind of together. So he brought in a piece from Newfound Gold, vended in with an old Warrior Gold story. At that point in time, I came on as corporate development, working closely with the previous CEO. And over the next year, she was basically teaching me the ropes and making sure that I knew all the ins and outs of the project. And she ended up retiring, and that's where I stepped in as interim CEO. And so I've been living and breathing this project for the last 3 years, and have a very strong belief in what we're doing. And I surround myself with a great team of geologists to basically work through all the different layers and steps, putting those cookie crumbs together to find this buried treasure. And so we've done a lot of the hard work to get to that point. We've done all of the boring geophysics, geochemistry, et cetera, and we have a lot of things pointing in the right direction. One of the things that's most important from a management team is being able to have the capital to explore. Exploration is expensive, and if you can't get capital, then you're never going to be successful. And we just completed a raise for 12.7 million, which is going to give us a really long runway to be able to explore this thing. We're going to be aggressive with it. So, drilling is going to be basically ongoing from now all the way through until July next year, with multiple rigs at the same time. So, I don't know if that fully answers your question from why our
Sure.
management team's so strong, but it's been done. I have a history in business, and so it's taking um, an approach of efficiency and smart spending, and looking at it from a different light, which allows us to really focus on the end result, which is making that discovery and flipping this business into one of those majors.
So you were talking about the raise and the runway you have. How long of a runway would you say you have to get through this next stage of development?
So it's always a tricky question because like from a corporate day-to-day spending, we spend less than 60,000 a month, and so we have $6 million put aside for that, which will last us multiple years. Obviously that will get us through 5-10 years, but that's not of interest to me. The point is to try to make that discovery as fast as we can to take advantage of these incredible markets. And so we're taking that and aggressively putting it towards exploration. And so if we want to, we can speed those things up as much as possible, employing 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rigs. And obviously the spend is going to increase significantly with that. So we're starting in, this month, we're starting with 1 rig, and then in 2026, January 5th, second rigs joining in, and then as we find more things, we're going to be adding rigs in. So this capital is budgeted. We have a 6 million spend that we're planning through till the end of August for drilling. And at that point in time, that's where we should have either multiple significant discoveries or a grasp of what we've already discovered, and seeing the size and scale of what we're working with.
And I understand that Kirkland Lake, the projects are near major existing mines, including 2 owned by Agnico Eagle and also one owned by Alamos Gold. Would you share some updates about your projects, and the importance of the projects being so close to these other existing mines?
There's a lot of different things that talks to. One is the mining friendly jurisdiction. Obviously, you have mines all over the place in the Abitibi, friendly First Nations towards mining. It also shows that that's where majors want to be working. You didn't talk about some small mid-tier producers. This is where the big boys like to operate. So there's a lot of infrastructure. But what it also says for us is that we don't need to find 5 million ounces for this to become a thing. So if you have, Upper Beaver, for example, with Agnico, is being put into production, they've already sunk the shaft, it's going down 2 kilometers. If they were able to find something that's less than 2 kilometers away at surface, that's the same type of metallogeny, would they take it? More than likely. So how big does that have to be? It's not 5 million ounces or 3 million ounces or 2 million ounces even. It's probably 500,000, right? It just has to be enough that they can put a block around it, permit it to extract, and then they'll ship it over to their existing mills. So
How far is that mine from you?
So the Macassa mine is less than 5 kilometers from our border, and the Upper Beaver is less than 2 kilometers from our border. They're
so that
very close.
That gives you high confidence.
High confidence, yeah. And the thing is that we always talk about Agnico being the most logical exit strategy for the company, but with a 40,000 hectare land package, it's the opportunity for another major to come in and get a very strong foothold in incredible jurisdiction too. So as much as I think that we would be working towards that partnership or working relationship with Agnico, I'm not closing it off to make that a restricted thing. I'm definitely open to having other people looking at this and seeing that opportunity for what it is, and that if you find enough, then you could have multiple mines across this amazing land package.
Stefan, Kirkland Lake is operating in the region that you mentioned, the Abitibi. It's the world's largest gold-rich greenstone belt with over 300 million ounces of gold discovered to date. Can you give some detail for those tuning in on this region, like what that really means?
I just hired a new guy that's working for me, and I said the only way you're ever going to understand the scale and prolific nature of this belt is to go there and see it, because I didn't get it. And I was in the space for a while, and when I went up there, we did a drive between Kirkland Lake and Val d'Or. We were doing a little bit of a road show, and you cross head frame after head frame after head frame, all of these mines, these open pits. It's basically, a kid's sandbox when it comes to mining. There's trucks everywhere. It's an incredible place to work. And the majority of those mines were found along two big cracks of the earth, the Destor Porcupine and the Cadillac Larder Lake. So they basically go along kind of a V shape. And in between that V is the Blake River group of rocks. And those rocks are the ones where you find VMS type of deposits. But the special thing about those VMS deposits in the Blake River group of rocks is they're extremely gold rich. So some of the best, deepest mines in Canadian history are in those Blake River group of rocks. You have La Ronde, Horn, Cumont. They're these massive ones. We're talking like 6 grams per ton with 60 million tons. Like just absolutely huge deposits. And you really can't get an understanding of that until you try to work somewhere else. And, I've worked in BC, I've worked in Northwest Territories, I've worked in Newfoundland, and I can drive to my drill site. The guys, the drillers will literally pick up McDonald's in Kirkland Lake, drive 10 minutes to the drill, and they're eating McDonald's on the drill. Like it's ridiculous. Whereas in BC, in the Golden Triangle, just as an example, you're flying a helicopter everywhere just to get to your drill. And so efficiencies of working in that space are huge. Our last drill program for the summer was $220 a meter. And you compare that with, again, you go Northwest Territories. I ran a program up there, it was $1,400 a meter, because you're flying in literally everything. Your camp has to be flown in, your fuel, everything. Whereas this is, we literally just drive to the site. So, and it's not a new thing, that's what I love most about working in Kirkland Lake is it's been a mining camp for over 120 years. Right. And with that, people respect mining, they appreciate mining. There's murals all over the place, there's dedications, there's historical buildings that are dedicated to mining. It's truly a special place. And once you go there and you see that and you experience it, then you go, man, like, why would I want to work anywhere else? It's so great. It's just a matter of, finding what hasn't been found up to this point in time. And that's the challenge of where we are working, is that there's glacial cover, right? So the glaciers came by, scraped off that layer, and basically deposited it across the ground where we're working. And so we have to use modern techniques like geophysics, geochemistry, AI to help pick through those layers to unlock what that hidden potential is underneath. And so we've taken those steps and gone through those exercises and have done our preliminary drilling to test our theories, and they've all come back positive. And so now, because we're well financed and we're working in such a great jurisdiction, we're going to be basically drilling for the next 6 months, 25,000 meters to unlock this thing.
Sounds exciting. Well, tell us what 2026 will bring for Kirkland Lake, and what expectations do you have in terms of outcomes?
So, like I said, drilling is starting. It actually drills on site today. It arrived today. So it'll be mobbing in, and drilling is going to commence, probably tomorrow, realistically. And with that comes the potential for massive re-rating. The only time, and I've had this conversation with some of my colleagues, but the only time that you get massive stock movement is when a drill is turning on an exploration project. And so we have not 1 or 2, but potentially 3 drills going, to unlock in these different areas. And we have a huge target that's 17 kilometers around, with all these different anomalies around it that are pointing towards mineralization. And so we've already done all the hard work. We're basically financed to the level we need to be to get full exploration of this. My thought process is, how many of these deposits can we find around this thing before we get bought out? What's the timeline on that? I have no idea. I don't know what's going to end up happening, but I don't want to be sitting on one spot with one deposit when there's 17 other ones right around there. And so we're focused on regional exploration to make multiple discoveries, And that's what our goal is for 2026, is to basically find out how many of these anomalies and EM targets and all these other things that are pointing this way, how many of those are going to be economic, and in turn, how big can we grow them after that? So what I'm expecting for 2026 is drill results coming out every 2 to 3 weeks consistently, as we're working through these amazing targets. And with that, the goal is discovery. If we hit on any of those, your stock can go from 40 million right now, 45 million with an EV of 30 to 500 million overnight. And so that's the goal for 2026, is that we have that massive discovery and we work through to the next level, and then we start drilling out further to find out what else we have.
All right. So we know the resource rich area that you're working in. We know the financing that you just put in place and the work you have ahead of you. Stefan, what are the potential pitfalls to Kirkland Lake's broader strategy of development, and where things could possibly go wrong?
The best part about that question is I love getting asked that question, because it's like, what keeps you up at night? What are the pitfalls? What could go wrong with this thing? And it used to be capital. That used to be my one that kept me up at night, is, are we going to have enough capital to find this thing? And that's it. Like, I don't have any other pitfalls. The thing that can go wrong is the geology gods don't bless us with a deposit. That's the risk. But outside of that, we have agreements with our First Nations, we have infrastructure. We can literally, like I said, we have forestry networks across that entire area. We can drive to site. There's no environmental concerns or issues. We have incredible neighbors. I don't have any. I try to give you something, but now we have capital, so I can't give you anything. We got the money to do the work, so we're going to find something. So it's, if the geology gods aren't smiling on us, then so be it. But
all right, we'll get to work, Stefan. Get to work. All right, so Stefan, what has you the most excited for the next several years of leading Kirkland Lake in the current bull cycle that we're in?
Oh, wow. I haven't been asked that. What am I most excited about? I'm excited that the work that we're doing is paying off. In the last 3 years, you do work and you put out good results and you get punished for it in the market. And now it's like, I can't even tell you how hard I worked to raise that 12.7. It was a slog. We had over 130 different subscribers, and each one of those, it was non-brokers. We did all the paperwork for all of those things, and our stock, took off after that. And that was one of the biggest blessings for me, being like, all the hard work is worth it in this market. And that's what excites me the most, because I'm an extremely hard worker. And the team is going to get rewarded for all of their, sacrifices that they've made over the years, giving up, weekends and days with their family. And to me, that's probably the most exciting thing, is that we have a great project. We are doing the hard work. We've unlocked a lot of different potential that this thing has the opportunity to make the most of this market. And if you time things correctly with positive results, which I feel that we're lined up almost perfectly for this, man, it's an exciting outlook. I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be happy to make a couple of bucks on this thing whenever the time comes, but it's that it actually matters. That's the fun part.
Well, this has been an exciting discussion with Stefan Sklepowicz, CEO of Kirkland Lake Discoveries. Before we wrap up here with Stefan, I just want to direct everyone who's interested in the metals and mining sector to dive into our Substack at metalsandminers.substack.com. Join the quickly growing community, and you're going to receive a free report. It's titled, "If You Don't Own Gold, You Know Neither History Nor Economics." That's a famous quote by investing legend Ray Dalio. That's also the name of the report that you'll receive. Now, I'm positive that you've been enjoying the conversation Stefan and I have been having. Please let him know. Hit the like and subscribe button and leave a comment below the video. Stefan, let's finish up with you sharing a key takeaway that you want the viewers who are watching to keep in mind about today's gold and macro setup, and then let everybody know where they could learn more about your work, how they could learn more about Kirkland Lake and how they can connect with you guys.
Awesome. The dominoes haven't been stacked more in our favor ever, I think, in the course of time for precious metals and miners. It's been a long time coming. This is a great opportunity to be in the space. I'm certainly levered for it as much as humanly possible, and I'm excited for the next, foreseeable future with these metal prices and what's to come. And the one thing that I look at with investments, and it's the approach of looking at something with what's the outcome that I'm looking for. And if something hasn't changed to reflect that or to change that, then stay the course and enjoy it. It just means that there's more buying opportunities, or there's just a brighter future ahead. And with that pullback that we had, that was a fantastic opportunity. That might be one of our last ones before this thing levels up again. So take a look at our situation, take a look at our YouTube channel, just as an example, where we go through day-to-day life of the geologists on the property and watch the rocks come out of the drill, etc. We do a treasure hunter series. Check it out, and you'll be amazed at this fun thing that junior exploration is.
All right. So what's the website and what's the YouTube?
So KirklandLakeDiscoveries.com is the website, and then at Kirkland Lake Discoveries on YouTube. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, etc. So you can check out any of those, but or search KLDC.
Okay, wonderful. I'll have all that information up on the screen. I'll put it in the description area for everybody to click through so you guys can get over to Kirkland Lake, have a look, do a deep dive, as they say, into everything. It's important that you understand the importance of the explorers and the juniors and their role that they're playing, and how much of an impact they can have on the market, but also the kind of impact they could have on you as an investment. So, Stefan, thank you for coming on to Metals and Miners, for being so generous with your time, analysis, and ideas. It's been a lot of fun to spend the time with you. I look forward to having you back on sometime soon. Everybody else, thanks for watching. I just want to direct everyone who's interested in the metals and mining sector to dive into our Substack at metalsandminers.substack.com. Join the quickly growing community, and you're going to receive a free report. It's titled, "If You Don't Own Gold, You Know Neither History Nor Economics." That's a famous quote by investing legend Ray Dalio. That's also the name of the report that you'll receive.